up? It's Way Up with Angela Yee. And you know, it's my favorite day of the week, a Wednesday, okay, for Wealth Wednesday. My partner, Stacey Tisdale, is here.
Happy Wealth Wednesdays, everybody. It is our favorite day of the week, and this is by far going to be one of our favorite Wealth Wednesdays.
Yours too.
Yeah,
everybody's listening.
Everybody's. Because we have Tiffany, the Budgetnista, Alice with us, and we are so honored to have her and celebrate yet another win for her.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Her new book that just came out, Made Whole.
Made Whole.
And if there's anybody on this planet who doesn't know who this woman is.
Right. She is a celebrity.
No. She's a huge celebrity.
You're a celebrity to me.
What do you call
to
it?
a lot of
the
people.
Favorite financial expert, America's favorite financial expert, because she has a New York Times bestseller, Get Good with Money. She's an NAACP Image Award nominee. Jealous. First Black woman to grace the cover of Money magazine. You co-host a top-ranked financial podcast called Brown Ambition. Co-founder of Live Richer Academy on Good Morning America, on the Today Show, everything else. One of my favorite things is she helped get legislation passed in the state of New Jersey. It's called the Budgetnista law. You know you're badass when something's called the Budgetnista law that makes financial literacy an area that I'm super passionate about. Angela's super passionate about a requirement for middle school students. Yeah. That's a mouthful.
Yes.
And before we even jump into everything about the book, your background is so fascinating. I know your parents are from Nigeria.
Yes.
They raised you with a focus on financial literacy, and that's really informed you and really informed the development and the creation of the Budgetnista.
It really does show how somebody from a young age can, when we teach children this, and that's why you got that legislation passed, how it can really impact their future.
Absolutely. I'm one of 5 girls. So first of all, thank you for having me on. This is awesome. But yeah, I'm one of 5 girls, and I learned about money at home. My father was a CFO and an accountant, and my mom a nurse. And so my dad we'd have money lessons in the living room. And then my mom we would go food shopping with her and clothing shopping with her, and she would show us, like, in the real world how money worked. I didn't realize that other people didn't get that until really college. And my college dorm mate, she had debt collectors called our dorm room. And we thought it was funny because, you're a kid, you're 17, you're making up funny voices, just to be like, hello, she's not here, And I told my dad, and he was like, yeah, that's not funny.
Yeah, it's not.
That's real life, and here's what you need to tell her. And it was like in that transferring of information that I realized, I think I want to do that. That I didn't realize everyone didn't have this information, but there's power in it. And so it's been 15 years since I started the Budgetnista, and I've helped over 2 million women. And some men, the ones who would listen.
Right.
Kidding, kind of. But yeah, it's been an awesome ride.
But even your own experiences with money too, because sometimes it is hard to talk about debt that you have and trying to get yourself out of that. So I always find it relatable because I definitely had a lot of debt when I first got out of college. I had things that, I talked about it before. It was one of the biggest things I did was to be able to admit I was like $30,000 in debt, and I had to figure out how to pay that off. And, it was on my Amex card, and they don't play.
Yeah, they don't.
At all. We all want that, but when you miss a payment, it's over for you. So can you talk about your own personal experiences with that?
So, Angela, when I was about 25, I was what I call financially perfect, 800 credit score. I had $30,000 saved, even though I was a school teacher.
Age?
25. Yeah, so I was basically just doing what my parents told me. And then at 26, I started what the old people call smelling yourself. I was like, I don't need to ask for advice. I'm out here by myself. And so I invested, air quotes, with a friend of mine who was a scammer. I didn't know that. He had like the Lambo, nice apartment in the city. And I didn't know at that age that like you could have nice things, but actually not have money.
Right.
Because he was scamming.
Ooh,
And so he told me, yeah, let's invest. And it was, it put me $35,000 in credit card debt. And by 25, I'd bought a condo because I thought, okay, I'm grown. Let me get my own place. So that was $220,000. And at 25, I also got my master's in education, which was another $52,000. So I was like $300,000 in debt. Then by 27, 28, I'd lost my job.
Wow.
So I had all this debt, no job. The recession hit the next year. It was like this accumulation of everything that could go wrong financially went wrong. And by the time I was 30, I just thought, there's no way that I could dig my way out of this. I ended up moving back home with my parents and spending my 30th birthday in my middle school bed.
Oh my gosh, what kind of feeling? And I have to ask you, with your dad having raised you and your mom talking about finances.
So I lied. I
was gonna say,
I said it's a recession. I need to come back home. It wasn't until years later that I wrote a book. It wasn't this book, Made Whole, but I wrote a book and I told my dad, I need you to read the last chapter. That's what I told him. He was like, "Is that why you moved home years ago?" I was like, "Yes." He was like, I mean, okay, but so that's the thing, that like when I'm teaching financial education, when I wrote the book Made Whole, it really was from a place of I understand the shame and the blame and the overwhelm, and here are the steps to get you for you to get to where you want to get to, because I've been there and I know how scary it feels.
Yeah.
Made Whole's kind of a workbook to your
Yes.
New York Times bestseller, Get Good with Money,
Absolutely.
which everybody should check out. How do they work together, and what if someone didn't read Get Good with Money?
That's okay if you didn't read Get Good with Money. I think about Get Good with Money as a textbook, right? And so almost 300,000 people have purchased that book already. And so, but if you're someone who wants to learn the lesson and then do the lesson immediately, that's what Made Whole is. It's the same 10 steps to financial wholeness, which is budgeting, savings, debt, credit, income, investing, insurance, net worth, your financial team, and estate planning.
She's not playing. She knows all 10 off
Yes.
the top of her head.
Yes.
That's how you know. That's how deeply involved.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I don't really believe in like preaching financial freedom, meaning you're gonna have a lump sum of money, you won't have to work one day, because maybe that might happen, maybe it might not, right? But with financial wholeness, everyone can achieve these 10 steps. Everyone can master and maintain these 10 steps, which means that a recession happens, you're gonna be all right.
Right.
You lose your job, you're gonna be all right. Interest rates are high, you're gonna be all right. That's what financial wholeness gets you to.
Yeah, because even saying I'm going to have this lump sum of money and that things happen.
Yes.
We saw when COVID hit, you might have thought everything was all set for you. You have these properties and then people stop paying rent.
Yes.
And then now what happens?
So if you don't have financial wholeness, so for example, with financial wholeness, so a lot of people who follow me know that 2 years ago, unfortunately, my husband passed away.
about that.
And I honestly, we didn't have a will. I was 90% whole when I wrote Get Good with Money. And I was like, oh, I'll get to a will later, because he was only 41. And thankfully, we had done 90% of what we were supposed to do. So it financially, I got to just miss him. And it didn't leave a financial hole for myself, my stepdaughter, our family. And so like that estate planning chapter, especially in Made Whole, is especially important to me, because I think people, you don't think about it. You think
don't.
to yourself, you know, you're going to be here forever.
That's one thing I need to do. I've been
Yeah.
telling myself that I need to handle that. Like
Yeah.
I did my life insurance. I made sure that was straight, but knowing that, and especially like I just got my real estate license, but things like that, that's in, that I was learning when I was taking the classes, it really made me realize I have to make sure I do this, because you don't know once you're not here.
Yeah. Because I'm telling you, like, so for example, like, so Angela, so for you likely would need a trust, right? So that just means everything, basically the trust owns everything now. And then you put your beneficiaries inside the trust. So you guys kind of co-own everything, but as the trustee, you're in charge of it.
Okay.
So if something, God forbid, were to happen to you, your family or whoever your beneficiaries are, they don't have to inherit the stuff. This
And
is
pay
why
the
like
taxes,
yes.
yeah.
And so because they already are owners, because it's part of the trust. So even now, all my life insurance policies, I sign them over to the trust.
Okay.
All my home, I own
See,
two
I
homes.
haven't done that. I got.
See,
this is good.
Yes, because if not, you know, like for example, in like California, literally there are people. So grandma bought the house for $50,000, and now it's worth $2 million, and so you inherit it. And state of California said there's a 50% inheritance tax. So now you have to come up with $1 million. And how do you do that? You sell the house. You know. But if you have estate planning in place, even I don't care if you're 21 listening to this, estate planning at 21 is: do you have a bank account? Put your mama down as a beneficiary.
Right.
I
Because
was 18. I realized that when my
Yes.
son went to college this year, that if he didn't, if I didn't get him to sign a medical power of attorney, just like we would need to in a financial power of attorney, he's my baby, but in the eyes of the law, he's an adult.
Yes.
I can't get, because of HIPAA laws, I would not be able to get medical information, make medical decisions, and you're right, any of their finances. So estate planning,
it's a critical
we
component.
think about it.
As something
Parents
for, like,
need to do this,
yes.
but your kids
Right.
need to do this,
Yes.
and if getting your kids together.
Yes.
That
And so
should
that's,
motivate you too.
That's why I wrote Made Whole, because I'm like, there are things you're like, I never thought about that. Like insurance, most of us are underinsured.
Right.
Insurance, I don't think people understand the purpose of insurance. It is supposed to protect the assets that you've accumulated. So like your body is an asset. You have health insurance. Your life is an asset. You have life insurance. You have a pet. Like,
Pet insurance,
you have pet
it's very
insurance.
expensive when you have to
Child,
take that.
when Fluffy has a cough and they tell you that's $5,000, you start looking at Fluffy like, it's been a good life.
I love you,
but no, but that's true, and I'm glad that we're having this conversation because now it's a priority for me to make sure I handle. And there's so many different ways to do it. I remember somebody told me one time, I don't need life insurance because I don't have kids, and
It's bigger than that.
So at first I didn't have it, and then I was like, and then I was doing my own research, and I was like, oh, actually, that's terrible advice.
It is. Because if you have assets, if you have any sort of debt, you know what I mean? And also, too, truthfully, life insurance is a way potentially to pass on wealth, especially in our community.
We're going to do a whole segment on that because people don't realize how much money you can make from it.
So for example, I had $3 million worth of life insurance. And even though my husband passed away, so he was the beneficiary. So my financial advisor asked me, did I want to cancel it? She said, or you can keep it because maybe it cost me like $2,000 for the year, which I can afford. And if something happens to me, I get to leave wealth to my sisters who are the beneficiaries. You know
now,
what I
if
mean?
you would have canceled it, you would get nothing. Is that?
Yeah. So for me, I would get
that. Yeah.
So but some people cancel because they're like, well, the person who is going to receive it is not here. But for me, it's like, well, the amount that it's costing me is, it's not so astronomical that I can't pay it.
Right.
That to me, I have the benefit of leaving potentially wealth to those who come after me.
They're going to have costs. They're going to have your funeral costs. It's just a mess.
Yes.
And I really want to hone in on this, the insurance and the estate planning, because there's such a disconnect in our community on this. We have a lot of conversations about building generational wealth and protecting it, but it all falls apart. And like you and I had a conversation, even when you get this stuff in place, estate, you really got to get ahead of estate planning, family trauma, everything.
Well, because the people don't understand the difference between a will and a trust, right? A will is, here are instructions for my stuff as soon as I pass away and up to 6 months. That's what that's all a will can do. A trust says years and years and years and years into the future. Like I can say, and I have, so if something happens to me, then it's like it goes to my 4 sisters. If one sister is not here, but her kids are here, it goes to her kids, not her husband, her kids, right? But that's important.
Right, yes,
right?
it is.
And then I'm like, but if the kids are underage, they don't get a payment unless they're going to go to school. If they're not going to go to school, then at age 21, they get one payment. Age 25, they get one payment. Age 30, they get the final. Right. But do you see how far into the future? Yeah. Because my oldest nephew is 8.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I can go reach far into the future on his behalf because I'm like, I know at 21 you don't have no sense. Maybe a little at 25, and hopefully at 30 when the final payment comes from auntie, you have a little sense. But a trust allows you to reach into the future. A will says this is what should happen immediately. And a beneficiary, that trumps everything. So if your beneficiary says your first wife, and something happens to you,
nightmares.
Yes, and something happens to you, even if your will says all my money goes to my second wife, that whatever that life insurance policy, the beneficiary name on that trumps everything. It doesn't matter what your will says, you know. So you always want to update your beneficiaries. You can, if you're 21, you probably have a bank account. Many of them have beneficiaries on there. Your life insurance policy at work, a personal life insurance policy, any of your investment accounts, you want to make sure they're updated. You have multiple children. You don't have to put just one beneficiary. You can say, I have 4 children, and each of them are 25% beneficiaries. People don't know you could split up.
Yeah, I split mine up too.
Yeah.
With my family. I want to ask you this because it is the holidays, and we're talking about being very financially responsible. But this is also a time where people are like, okay, it's the holidays. We're going to be spending a little bit maybe above what we normally would have budgeted. We're buying gifts. We want to make other people happy. There's all these sales going on right now. So I want to talk to you about that because I know for a long period of time, I definitely know for a fact myself, like I am an emotional spender. When I have certain things going on, I'm like, oh, it's only going to make me feel better if I buy myself something. And I feel like sometimes I go through like a little withdrawal when I'm not shopping because I'm trying to be responsible and I have a lot of things that I need to take care of. So what can you talk to people about with that when it comes to, all right, I'm in this situation right now and it is the holidays and it is a time when we are going to be traveling and maybe we don't have it like that. What kind of advice would you give to people?
So one, like before the holidays, like really get up and running, set aside money in like a separate account. So one of the chapters in Made Whole is the savings chapter. And I talk about separating your money so you can see your money. You should have a checking account, 2 checking accounts at your regular bank for bills and spending, and another 2 savings accounts at a separate online only bank. because that means you can't make easy transfers. Usually about 24-hour wait, you know? So I like to open up savings accounts for specific goals. So I might have like a holiday savings account. So I know as I'm pulling money out of that account, this is the money I've set aside. It's not going to affect my bill money. It's not going to affect my day-to-day spending for groceries and grooming. And it's not going to affect my emergency savings. Like I'm setting aside this specifically for this. Like I'm renovating I bought a condo recently and I'm renovating it now. I set that money aside, you know? So even though I'm spending a lot of money, but I'm like, yeah, but you still have money in the pot, so you're good.
This has nothing to do with the money that I
Exactly.
have for my...
So separating your money, especially for holiday shopping, is going to be critical. It depends on what kind of shopper you are, but honestly, it sounds crazy, but shopping online can be helpful because you can make your list ahead of time, look at your budget and say, these are the things I'm buying versus going into the store and just pulling things off the shelf.
And you can also do a lot of comparison shopping online too, which is really helpful. When I see something I like, I put it in my Google and then I put in shopping and then I see if I can get it. I save so much money that way. And also like signing up for discounts.
Yes.
If, sign up to get on this email list and you get 10% off.
And following them on social media. Right? Follow your favorite like retailers on social media. Sometimes they'll have like literally like specific social media coupons.
Oh, definitely.
So I like to follow them and say like, well, what we got today?
Right.
You know? And so, but honestly, when it comes, no one wants to hear the word budget, but like, I start off, I'm the Budgetnista.
Yes, you are.
And the first chapter of the book, I start off with the fundamentals of this is how you create a budget. And you can literally have a budget, create it, and then automate it. So these things can happen for you. You don't have to think about, are my bills paid? Because you have a separate checking account for bills. I call it split it before you get it.
Right.
Head on down to HR and say, hey, HR, you put all my money in this one pot. Pots are great for paella and jollof rice. It's not good for money. I want you to have a checking account just for your spending. So that's attached to your debit card. So that's like groceries, hair done, nails done, everything did. And then I want you to have a separate checking account just for bills. Right. And ideally automate those bills. So you don't have to wonder. 35% of your credit score is on-time payments. So if you automate your bills, that's 35% of your credit score done right there, and it's automated. And then you have your savings set aside. So when I swipe my debit card, I know I'm not spending savings. I'm not spending bill money. It's money set aside specifically for this.
In that budgeting part of the book, you talk about really understanding the money you have flowing in and the money you have flowing out.
Yeah.
And that sounds great. But sounds very overwhelming to an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
To somebody who doesn't have steady income. All of this. So like when you hear people talking about budgeting and saving and all of this stuff, it's like, I don't know what I'm going to make next month. I don't know if I'm not going to make money for 3 months.
I'm waiting for people to pay me.
Child, that's so
always waiting.
You have to so literally chapter 3, I think it's called Saving Like a Squirrel. So squirrels are super savvy savers, right? Squirrels understand that fall comes, spring comes, acorns are everywhere. But squirrels know that financial winter comes. I'm like, winter comes for everybody. So what do squirrels do? That's when they're their busiest and save the most. So when you are in your financial abundance, if you have a business, January Q1 is your great quarter. Know that money's not just for Q1, it's also for Q4.
Because a lot of times you get that money
Yes.
I finally get that jacket.
So you have to
do this.
You have to set aside. You have to set aside money. So what I like to do, I finally learned as an entrepreneur, I call it pay the pot. So in the beginning, I would have a speaking engagement. They would pay me. I'm like, I got money. No. The pot has money, right? So I would put money into the pot, like a checking account specifically for my business. And then I would have the business allocate money to me monthly. No matter how much, if I made $10,000, I would still get $2,000 that month. If I made $1,500, I could still get $2,000 because I put in. So I would pay the pot. Well, you pay the pot. The pot pays you.
You have to.
Because that's what business looks like.
Yeah.
Do you think Jeff Bezos is like, you purchased, lip gloss, and he's taking your $2.50 from his pocket? Like, we got to be grown. You got to pay the pot. Or else, the IRS is like, well, you going to pay this pot.
I would love to see a video of Jeff Bezos doing it.
Like, and if you ask him, he will make one.
And listen, another thing that you talk about in this book is enhance or expand your skills. I love that because I am Miss Take a Class.
Yes.
She just got her real estate license a couple weeks ago and just strolls in. I did this, and now I think I'm going to become a CPA.
But I really just started taking the classes because I've been doing some real estate things personally, and I wanted to make sure that I
understood
everything that I was doing, but also because I know I can get paid if I do some referrals.
Exactly.
Just because if I'm like, oh, Stacy's looking for a house, let me refer her here. I can't get paid if I don't have my license. But when I have my license, now
what you're learning, Angela, is what the mistake that people are making on social media now is they're doing all the things. You're learning that real money is made deep versus wide. It's like, I'm doing this thing already. How many other skills can I collect in this arena?
Yeah.
So like, so people come to me, they're like, Tiffany, you speak. Yes, I have a book and I have a podcast and all in the financial space.
Right.
So there's like 10 different ways that I'm making money in this deep pot versus I do hair, I do nails, I do toes, I have financial education. It's like the corner store. They have chicken, chains, CDs, and it's like, so learning in business, just even personally, going deep with your money versus wide is going to be really smart because you're going to be able to make more because you become an expert in that space. And so when brands come to me, they got to come with the bag,
right?
Because they're like, no, Tiffany's an expert in this space versus, oh, that's the girl that does everything.
Now, let me ask you this, since we're talking about, coming with the bag, negotiating, right? Because that's an important thing too. Sometimes we're not negotiating our salaries, we're not negotiating raises, we're not negotiating what our rate is. So how were you able to get good at that? Was that a skill that you always had, or was that something you had to learn?
I had to learn. And so I do this thing called Illustrate Your Oprah. If Oprah came to us and said, hey, y'all, if you drop $250,000, you have 10 hours to do so, I will open up my Rolodex and introduce you to everybody I know. We would come up with that $250 so fast because we know Oprah's value is so obvious that we know we're going to make that money back, times 10. So I realized that, like, if I needed to make my value so obvious, people came up with the money, like as if I was Oprah. How do I illustrate my value in such an undeniable way that you come see me? Like just this last month, my team, we got over $200,000 worth of contracts that came in Q4. People are like that, this was a really bad year and it was a rough year for us too. But the brands are coming to me because they're like, we see Tiffany's value. Is it via social media? How do you show up? Do you have a strong email list? Are you connecting? Are you converting? Like, how do you show up so people know the value you bring to the table? And that allows you to negotiate.
And then you attract it. Yeah.
Yeah. So one, I always get the feelers out. Like, what are the girls giving?
Right.
How much did you get? How much did you get? And then I'm like, okay, based upon your size, the value that I think that you bring to the table, this is what I can ask for. And I've pushed back. I mean, I had a brand. It was a huge multinational brand. If I said their name, you'd be like, oh, okay, we watched their movies, And they came to me and they asked me how much for a keynote. I told them $50,000. They said, girl, you tried it. And then I realized that it was the woman who was negotiating. I could see her name was a black woman. I said, okay, let me get my black girl card out. I was like, sis, as a black woman, like, I do just as much as everybody else that you've hired. Why am I not able to attract that kind of money? And she's like, well, the people at the top. I said, well, push back at the people at the top.
Right.
And she did, and I got my money, and I slayed it, because that's important too.
Yes, you have to
I
slay.
slayed it, and then they came back and said, we are so sorry that we denied you, because I illustrated my Oprah.
You have to really stand up for yourself.
Yes.
We were doing a big campaign with a big company, had agreed on a price for content and everything, and then had shot everything. And then the day before we were supposed to really, really go into production, I got a call saying, our marketing agency is reevaluated and we're going to give you half of what. I hired the crews, I'd hired the graphics, I'd done everything. I didn't panic, and I called the head of diversity at the company.
That's what you did.
And I said, I think a situation has come up that you could inform.
Yes, indeed.
I said, they're valuing this. They're saying, this is this impressions, this is that. I said, so what they're not valuing is us.
Yeah.
And you want us to talk about how you're so great to people of color, which I want to do because I believe your company is, but you really need to take a look at that. Done. Had it. Next day.
Right.
But what a lot of that negotiation is confidence. And I love about the book how you address the psychological aspect. So talk to us about that a little bit, and like really important. And I love it. And I love that we do it. At the beginning, you talk about sharing your shame is okay.
Because shame shields solutions. And so I try to help people with their money, but if they're still beating themselves up, it's hard for me to for you to see that there is something on the other side of this. And so for me, I learned through therapy and just through action that, like, in order to, like, get rid of shame, you have to give voice to it. And so for me, it was like I had to get myself a Linda. Linda's my best friend. I had to tell her, like, yo, I'm drowning in my personal finances. Things are not going as well as I'd hope. And Linda was like, that's it, girl. Please look around. We all broke. And, because it put it into perspective, and I was like, you're right. And so what it did, though, was it opened me up to realize it's not, shame loves for you to think you're by yourself. Only you. And so once I realized that there were a ton of people also navigating that space, it let me realize that, like, I wasn't a bad person. I was in a bad spot, but I wasn't a bad person. And I could see the solutions. And that's why I started the Budgetnista. That's why I wrote Made Whole, because I said I didn't want anyone else to navigate without their Linda. I wanted to be there to stand in space and hold space for people who are like, I am ashamed. I don't know what to do. I want to tell someone, and then I want to be able to take action. And so if I share all the DMs that I get, like just from when this book, it came out just last week. I mean, already people are like, Tiffany, I'm crying while I'm reading this. I'm doing the work. I can see myself on the other side. For the first time, I'm opening up my bills. I realize that I'm not alone, because you're not. No, you're not.
I used to be the queen of not opening up my bills, but now I pay everything every month as soon as I can. And I love the fact that you gave specific numbers, because I think people also have an issue with that, right? Talking about I don't want to talk about that. I did a podcast one time, and it was like a group podcast. And so one of the first things we did was talk about what we each were offered to do it, so that we could say we all want to get paid the same amount of money for this work, because sometimes people can keep that to themselves and try to negotiate for themselves and kind of feel like, well, we were all equals in this, so we should all get paid the same amount. But sometimes people really don't want to talk about the salaries. People lie all the time too, and will say they got more. Like, I've heard that happen too. Somebody will be like, oh yeah, they paid me X amount of dollars for this, and then they don't know I know the person.
Yes.
And
now you look foolish.
Yeah,
like,
and now she's like,
really
we didn't have that type of budget.
Exactly.
But also, I'm like, why did they offer me that?
But also too, it's like, it's not helpful. Like, like in this space, like sharing what you made. Anyone who knows me knows that I share my numbers freely.
Right.
Because I'm not ashamed of them.
Yeah.
Because even in sharing, I mean, I like a friend of mine, Lovey, she it's like a social commentary person. And Lovey, I shared with her like how much I was charging for social media. She said, you played yourself. Up this, up this, up this, up this. I didn't know.
Right.
But for speaking, I was like, girl, that's it. Up this, up this, up this. And so it's in that exchange that
you
like,
learn.
that I learned I could get paid more. And also too, in this space, when you share, people put you on. I can't tell you how many times someone has pulled me into a room and be like, oh no, this is who you need to get to speak. And here's the budget for that, Tiffany. Or how many times that I can't do a thing and don't have a bag and I can't do it. I'm like, oh, well, hold the bag. Let me call.
I have somebody.
Yes, I have somebody who can
friend.
collect.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, no, that we should all be sharing. Like, and so to me, financial education, like I think it's like the 8th or 9th chapter, I talk about your financial team. And one of the people on your financial team in Made Whole, you need to have an accountability partner. That it is a team sport, your money. You should not be out here doing it by yourself. It's too overwhelming. So Beyonce has the Beehive and I have Dream Catchers. And so there are over 2 million Dream Catchers worldwide. We have, inside the book, I give you access to our free communities. We have a number of them. Some are upwards of 500,000 people. So there is no financial challenge that you can have that someone has not experienced it, solve for it, is not willing to share how you can do so too. So it's not just like, to me, it's more than money. It's a movement that I'm wanting to create. That yes, you get the book Made Whole, but then you also get a chance to do the work. I have all these tools and resources that are free on the site, and then you get invited to the group so you're never by yourself. That like the teacher in me understands that holistically you need help. Somebody to hold your hand through the whole thing of it. And so,
absolutely.
Yeah, that's why I love what I do.
That's how you got started, because digging yourself out, and then your friends asking you how you did it, and then you telling them, and you're like, hey, this is catching on.
Yeah, and so here I am.
Well, I love this, and I'm glad we're best friends now. So.
Can I share what the people can get Made Whole?
Yes, please.
So if you want to get the workbook Made Whole, you can go to madewholeworkbook.com. That's madewholeworkbook.com. There's a full free toolkit there.
Don't forget the W in whole.
Yes, Made Whole.
No, you're not that type.
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, it's already doing really well. And so I'm the Budgetnista everywhere.
We love you so much. Like, honestly, I really am happy that you're here, because like I told you, I always looked at you as like, oh my gosh, she's really amazing.
Oh, thank
like
you.
a celebrity in my eyes. So
thank you.
And just so helpful to people, to me, because I am now about to go and get this trust going.
Good.
I'll be your
If
accountability
you need an
person.
attorney, let me know.
Okay, yes, please.
Yes.
I'm ready. Let's get it. I feel energized. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Great. Thank you for joining Wealth Wednesdays. And don't forget to go to madewholeworkbook.com. And I just love it, because you have the kit, you got the lists, everything. You don't have to do anything. Just fall into her community and her loving arms, and it'll all work out.
Thank you, Stacey. You're the best.
All right. It's Wealth Wednesday. Thank you so much.